A very good morning to all of you, and I must apologize at the outset for coming in a bit late, but between the traffic in the air and on the ground, it sort of does its little bit. But distinguished guests on the dais, distinguished guests in the audience, uh, I just sort of caught the last few sentences of the earlier speaker, and I could just sort of get a sense of energy rushing within myself. So I must say that there were so many chords that were struck so well. I, of course, am completely coming from the world of finance. What SIDBI does is really to try and bring technologies to the SMEs. So I don't want to get into a lot of figures of where we are supposed to be as a nation, where we are supposed to be as a world in terms of climate risk. I think that's common knowledge now. The good part is that events like this allow all of us to come and bring in that team spirit, as was just mentioned a few minutes earlier. And the very fact that so many of us take time out to be present in these kind of occasions only goes to reinforce the mutual understanding that we all have of how important it is to, one, create the technologies, and two, to bring it to the market. And I think it's that second part where SIDBI and the banking system has to play its role. Very quickly, we have been involved with what is really known as greening the Indian financial system. For the last about 2 years, we have multiple long-standing relationships with multilateral banks like World Bank, KfW, AF. There is the French Development Bank, though it's not multilateral, the ADB. Now, what are we really trying to do by coming together? We are taking away the risk of a new technology. And we are effectively doing that in two ways. One, it is really about backstopping the transfer of technology or the go-to market of technology when it has to be adopted by, of course, the citizens at large. But our aim is really to make clean tech and other such appropriate technology to be adopted more quickly by the MSMEs. There is a very sort of, a pointed sword hanging over the MSME sector, because if the sector were not to take rapid strides immediately and try and update its own processing, it is soon going to find that the standards for manufacturing that are probably going to come and hit this sector one fine day, they will be completely out of place and out of sync with the standards that are probably going to get imposed. And therefore, with whatever awareness that we all collectively have, we have tried our best to align with the standards that are there largely in Europe. We've tried to adapt that with the help of the standards that a few regulators have set in India, namely the RBI and SEBI. We've also looked at what the ministry has done, as in the Department of Economic Affairs, when it comes to the concept of taxonomy. Now, that is still unfinished business, but from an MSME perspective, what we've brought about is an approach to taxonomy. It's a paper that we have best understood. We are now socializing this through the Ministry of MSME. We are taking it to the industry associations. And it is a very simple rule book that these technologies can get classified as green. Now, this is really the first large attempt that we are trying to make MSMEs aware that there is something called being green, there is something called an energy audit. There is a path, a glide path where if you were to follow that, you will end up doing your own commerce better. You will end up probably having more importers around the world wanting to buy your products. Within India itself, the value chain, which is sort of pushed by the large manufacturing entities like, say, an ITC, an HUL. I mean, these are, of course, in the automotive space, this has happened now for a while, where standards are set by the large anchors, and the value chain, which is nearly entirely dominated by MSMEs, they therefore upgrade themselves in order to meet the requirements of the anchor. All this has an additional expense. The first thing we hear from the MSMEs is, why should I spend my money? My neighbor is not doing it. Now, it's an intense competition. As you would know, many of these MSMEs work in clusters, and therefore it is a cluster approach that we have to take. So as SIDBI, we have one, which is actually the easy part. We've just reduced interest rates for what we call as green technology. So whether it is energy efficiency, where we have successfully run a program for several years, close to 10 years now, with the help of some World Bank support, and we have managed to, with a lower cost, with something called a risk-sharing facility, which is nothing but a credit guarantee, we've managed to bring about change in about 80 large-sized MSMEs across the country. And the good part is this has happened without any NPAs. Now this program is being scaled up many-fold. So we're looking at a very large credit guarantee support. And as I said, this is one of the largest ways for the financial sector to kick in and play its part, where you have the concept of a credit guarantee which stands behind the banks. So if I'm a lender, I will lend to an MSME for apparently or perceived risky technology, for making it to become more energy efficient, for it to adopt better manufacturing processes, and I will then cover myself up to, say, 50% or 75% by a credit guarantee scheme. Now, if one were to take this to scale, you're really talking about the ability to backstop through a credit guarantee anywhere between 2 to 3 lakh crore of loans that would probably be needed to go into this entire sector. Now, of course, this is going to happen over a 3 to 5 year period, but these credit guarantee schemes run for several years. And our own understanding, both in the energy efficiency World Bank-driven guarantee scheme, plus the more popular CGT MSE, which is the credit guarantee scheme for the micro and small enterprises, which has run for 25 years, we found that collectively the NPAs or the defaults are so small that it actually is a profitable activity for somebody to put their money and stand as a guarantor. So we have seen that this has worked very well. We are therefore scaling this program up, again with the help of the World Bank for EVs, with the help of the ADB for three-wheeler and four-wheeler, with the help of World Bank for two-wheeler and three-wheeler. So I think, what is really happening is the time has come for us to put, all our, both our best feet forward at the same time, and make sure that we provide sufficient financial tools and instruments for the banking sector to be able to bring in the required volume of debt and credit for the MSMEs. So this is really the largest push that we are trying to make. Separately, we are working with MSMEs directly by, one, conducting energy audits for them, which is free of cost. We then bring them onto a graduation path where, with lower cost of loans from us, we're trying to somewhere make the market or provoke the market to bring other banks also into the fray, so that the banks understand that, yes, this experiment has been run by SIDBI for a couple of years now, and it has run well, it is successful, we should also follow suit. So the IBA, that is the Indian Banking Association, has fully put its might behind this effort. I myself am chairing what is known as the ESG committee at the IBA. So it is really about the banking sector taking forward a lot of the technologies that were just talked about by the previous speaker. And my last point, therefore, really will be that we are talking largely bank loans and debt, but what is also happening in a very significant way is the clean tech and the other such technologies which are getting generated from academic labs and institutions. They need equity financing to be able to scale up and go to the market. And that is something which we have seen successfully happen, albeit in a small way, in what is known as the Startup Fund of Funds. So what SIDBI has run for the last nearly 6 years now, and it will continue for another 4 years. It's a 10-year program where we provide funds to what is known as alternate investment funds, which are SEBI-registered funds. They come with their own discipline and experience of investment, and we are encouraging tech. The entire sustainability sector requires a lot of equity funding. This has now caught on in other parts of Asia. It obviously has been sort of an important sector for the developed economies. But what we are now doing is we are working on a separate green fund where we hope to bring in additional capital, not only from our own balance sheet, but also from like-minded people, like the multilateral development banks, like the sovereign funds, because it is really about India where a lot of action is. Now, you know, the interesting part is that with India's growth, we are also adding to emissions, and therefore we're probably at the sweet spot where our growth should get infused with the right kind of technology for our growth to be, say, less dirty. And that is, I think, an important point that we must catch right now. We are therefore pushing forward a green fund. We are encouraging a lot of technology, and I will be very happy to work with Madam. She spoke about a few excellent technologies. Green hydrogen still might be a little ambitious, but there are a lot of other things which can immediately be done. And it would be really important to work on battery technology. In fact, waste to wealth is another excellent area where we find innovative methodologies for converting waste into wealth. And of course, the solar, or the what we call as our mission of putting a solar rooftop solar on every single MSME's rooftop. Now, that is something which is a campaign that we are taking forward. I'm sure there would be more innovations within that. But the need for more and more equity to come in, and this is really equity which is long-term equity, because we need to be patient about how technologies can move from lab to market. So that is, I think, another very important piece which we have understood, and we are now supporting that fully. So I am very thankful to the organizers for inviting SIDBI to this forum, and I just want to leave that message that SIDBI by itself, and if I may speak on behalf of the financial sector, that everyone is fully aware of the importance of climate risk and technologies that can mitigate climate risk. And therefore, thank you very much for your patient hearing.